Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager. Today I have a very special guest, a very good friend. He is the president of High Point University, led a turnaround there. He is the chair and on several boards from Great Harvest Bread Company, 220 locations around 43 states. He is on the board for Truist, one of the Fortune 500 organizations. He's earned all kinds of awards I will not list right here, but I know Horatio Algiers. I know Ellis Island Medal of Honor. I know so many others. He's written 12 books and done a whole lot of other things. But please welcome to the show my friend Nido Qubein.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate being with you.
Well, Dr. Qubein, let's get into it. You came over with $50 in your pocket several decades ago. Give us the 2-minute story.
Well, I grew up without a dad, David. My dad died when I was 6 years of age, and my mother brought us up. My mother had fourth grade education, but she had a postgraduate degree in a discipline you and I would call uncommon sense. So much of what I know and so much who I am really came from that. One of a lady who was left with 5 kids, and she had to feed us and clothe us, and most importantly, instill in us values for living and principles for life. And so she wanted me to go to America and get an education and make something of my life. And she bought a one-way ticket. She borrowed the money for it. And anyway, I came over here, went to college, and undergrad and grad. And then out of grad school, I started my first business. And, my very first, I've never worked for anyone, David, until I became president of High Point University in High Point, North Carolina. I've always been my own guy. If I made a few bucks, I kept a few bucks. If the business didn't do very well, I had to put in a few bucks from savings. So I understand initiative, just what you have. I understand trust. I understand collaborative effort, relational capital, the things that make any individual successful in their own sector. These are almost standard. There are standard qualities that all of us should have. If we
give us a couple of those really quick. You've got 12 books. I'm going to get to the transformation at High Point. Yeah. My daughter's at High Point. I have a relationship there with being on the expert in residence, and we just love what you're doing there. But give us a little bit of, just to start us out, some of the things that helped you right out of the bat, starting the first business, getting going here. There's plenty of people.
David, first things first, your daughter is the prettiest and the smartest on campus.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, you pay in full and pay on time, and I thank you for that.
That's right. In full.
Okay, so here goes. Focus is more important than intelligence. So anything that we hope to accomplish in life to any degree or accomplish anything meaningful, we have to focus on it. You get out of life what you focus on. You become an expert in an area that you focus on. So that's point number one. Point number two, who you spend time with is who you become. You're as good as the circle of influence in which you choose to reside. I said choose to reside. And so if you hang around people like David Horsager, you're going to learn good things. You're going to be intelligent by default. You're going to have a wider spectrum about life and living. But if you hang around people whose view of life is very limited and who is war is me and life is terrible and America is awful, then what happens to you in the end is you really begin to believe it. How do we know that? Because your beliefs lead to your behaviors lead to your results. So if you want to change your results, you really must change your beliefs, not just your behaviors, but your beliefs. And that needs coaching. That's what this podcast is all about. That's what you do, David, is all about. We all need coaching. I don't care how high we are on the ladder of success. We all need outside perspective. Question is, who's in your circle of influence? So I tell people, can you name me the 5 most important people in your circle of influence? Can you take their average income? Can you take all their income, add it up, hypothetically, figuratively? You're going to make the average of those 5 people's income. Now, I don't mean that literally. I mean the environment in which you choose to reside will affect the person you become. Here's another one. What you choose is what you get. So please, for heaven's sake, Don't blame the world, the economy, the president, the Congress, and the global warming about your success or lack thereof. It's your choices that get you to where you are. And then the last one, I have many of those, but the last one is how you change. Not if you change, not when you change, not where you change, but how you change is how you succeed. In other words, are you an agile and flexible human being? Are you learning something new every day? Are you becoming all God intended for you to become? Those are the principles that truly penetrate our soul, not just our brain, and make us the persons that we are.
So this is fantastic, and we could say a lot more. We might as well not be too long because we all got so much we can do with just that. But let's jump in here to High Point. I'm on the board of another university. Obviously, many of our clients are some of the Big Ten universities, and we've had our work at MIT and other places, and I love what's happening at High Point, and I just want to read a couple things. So 2005, before you were there, just at the beginning, there were 28 buildings on campus. Now there's 122 buildings. There were 385 positions. Now there's almost 2,000 positions. Their economic impact in High Point was about $160 million. Now it's almost $1 billion. The operating budget was $38 million. Now it's closer to $400 million. You've got 5 study abroad programs. When you started, 65 or more. Now 3 academic schools. Now 9 academic schools. Applications used to be a couple thousand. Now they're over 15,000. The property, plant, equipment, $75 million. Now it's 1.1 million. And I think since you've been there, about $1 billion, with a B as in boy, there's almost $2 billion you've raised since you've been there. Of course, I've had the unique opportunity. I can tell you the other best beautiful campuses there's no more beautiful campus than High Point. And there's some things you did differently. This is partly how we started, my first book, when I started writing 15 years ago, I started studying High Point. I wrote about High Point in that book because I was watching what was happening very quickly, even in just your first 3 years. But just give us a quick glimpse first. How did you get board buy-in? Bert, that was big change because you didn't go to build a big endowment at first. You went to say, we got to change some things.
Yeah. So, David, you're right about everything you said. Those are accurate figures that you just cited. Let me just put it this way. I was going to be the chairman of the board of trustees here. I was the incoming board. The school was basically, just to quote a reporter, was both broke and broken. And the board sort of persuaded me to come here. I said, I'll come for 2 years. This is my 18th year about to finish. People say, how did that happen? I said, very simply, I fell in love. I fell in love with the purpose. I fell in love with the students. I fell in love with the mission, planting seeds of greatness in the minds, hearts, and souls of our students. I mean, there is no greater mission in life. You are a steward of your talents. And that stewardship means you have to share it and share it in ways that can influence the world and impact the outcomes. So how did we do it? Well, the board were friends of mine. Clearly, they knew me. They trusted me. I've been around for a while. I've built some businesses. I've served on boards, as you said, and so on. So I think my record was pretty clear that I was a trusted leader, David. That's what it was. I was a trusted leader. I am a trusted leader. Now, beyond that, clearly we had to do some avant-garde things. We're an anomaly in many ways. That isn't to say that we're doing something crazy. Not at all. We respect the protocol of the academy, but we take some license with the frame around the Mona Lisa. And higher education has gotten comfortable. And higher education begins to think that it is unto itself. We don't think that way. We think there's a big world out there. And we think your daughter deserves to do what she is destined to do in her life. And we have to prepare her for that with all the majesty that we possibly can. And so when we say at Hype University, we first, put our stake in the ground and said, we're a God, family, country school. And I say to every open house, if that bothers you, please know something. We respect that. I have no right to judge that. However, this may not be the school for you. Now that's putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is what we believe, but you can believe anything you want to believe. This is an inclusive campus. We have all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds. Number 2, we said, this is the premier life skills university. If all you want is just to get an academic, a degree or an academic certificate or diploma, you can get that lots of places. The 4,000, institutions of higher learning in America. But High Point is not MIT, and it's not Stanford, and it's not Harvard. So when you are not told, because we don't have the history, we don't have the endowment, you better be distinctive. And that distinction better create appreciated value, not value. but appreciated value in the minds of parents like you, Mr. Horsager, and your wife and your family. And you have to create an abundance of those people who believe in who you are. So we went from 1,400 students to 6,000 today. I'm trying to hold enrollment because that means you have to buy land, build buildings. We're a residential institution. So people believe what you do based on your performance. If you do something today, I begin to trust you, believe in you, and things begin to build in the right direction. But I think we have a responsibility as leaders, David. We have a responsibility to explain to those who have been entrusted with the responsibility, board of trustees, faculty, others, explain what you're doing, why you're doing it that way. And we have a responsibility ourselves to say, if the worst thing were to happen, which will be A, B, and C, we can deal with it in this way. 1, 2, 3. And so I found that when you're open, when you're communicative, when you're flexible, when you're trustworthy, and when you're focused, these work for the good. And that's what's happened at Hype University. What's happening today is parents like your family believe in who we are and what we do, and they test us on it. They don't just take it at face value. They've been here 10 times. They really know. But let me tell you something, David. There are also people out there who do not like what I just said to you. They don't like the God family country. They don't like the life skills. They're threatened by it or they don't believe in it. And I say, it is not my place to judge. I respect that. I'm a civil person. Civility guides our day on this campus. But man, oh man, are we creating leaders, hopefully trusted leaders for the tomorrows of our lives.
We understand the frustration of overspending on training programs without seeing long-term culture change and measurable results. From decades of working with top brands and organizations, we have seen that building a high-performing, high-trust culture is the only way to create a lasting impact. High-trust leaders make the difference between a flavor of the month training initiative and measurable learning and development. Our community of TrustEdge certified partners is equipped with a suite of tools to build a high-performing, high-trust culture where people can perform at their best. So if you want to start solving the root issue in your organization and produce lasting results, head to trustedgeplatform.com to learn more. And now, back to the show.
I'm going to, and I'll say that I've said this many times with the universities we worked with, and there are some fantastic ones. But one, of all the institutions we work with, from healthcare to pro sports teams to global governments, I say education. This is the great paradox. Education is one of the least innovative institutions in the world. And yet you are incredibly innovative. I could give 5 ways. You've got 25, but let's take 5 quick ways that you are innovative at High Point, different at High Point, that change the way, make it different.
Yeah, there are many, many ways, but we'll talk about 3, 4 of them. Number one, we have an in-residence program. You're one of our in-residence experts. We have about 50 of those, all the way from the founder of Apple Computer to the co-founder of Netflix to the CEO of Domino's Pizza to the CEO of Mark Cuban's operations, on and on the story goes. Why do we have them? Because these are practitioners like you. You are not just a practitioner, David, but you are in the know. Every day you are with people who are making it happen. We need our students to be connected with people who are out there knowing what the world is doing. And so our in-residence program, phenomenal. Second to none. Our students love it and so on. Number 2, we focus on career services. So our school, every graduate here, within 6 months of graduation, 98.2% of our students either get a job, start a business, or go to graduate school within 6 months. Now, most schools look at a 9-month average to get anywhere close to that number. National average, 83%. So we beat it by 15.2 points. What's going on here? Well, what's going on here is that we have put resources in career services, resources in internships, and so on. So that's the second powerful thing. The third one is experiential learning. Now, all these connect, of course, for the, to get the outcomes that you want. Experiential learning has to be in the science lab. It has to be in the communication lab. It has to be in athletics. It has to be in student life. That means engage and involve your people. How do you build culture in an organization? There are really 5 steps for it, right? Number 1, you inform your people. Number two, you involve your people. Number three, you inspire your people. Number four, you inspect what you expect from your people. And number five, you increase, you enhance what they do, you improve them and increase them. And so how do you do that if you're not engaged, if you're not involved? So we do all that in a wonderful way. I think a fourth thing that we've done is branding. The way we've branded ourselves is not unique, but it's definitely distinctive. And we say to the world, there are many schools out there. Pick the school you want. It'll be a fine one. But High Point has significant branding. You see it everywhere across campus. But by the branding, I mean not just making a promise, but making sure that the expectation of people, the interpretation of parents of that promise is real, right? It's sort of the reality versus your imaginative soul. I tell our students here, there's no such thing as unrealistic dreams, only unrealistic timelines. You have to believe in the art of the possible. And the fifth one would be the business guy. I started businesses. I met payroll. I think I know a lot about risk management. I think I know a lot about the difference between solution finding and problem solving, the difference between energy management and time management, and on the story goes. So I bring a perspective that parents love, and that perspective is not unique, but highly, highly distinctive in higher education.
A load here. 5 eyes of culture building, 5 other tips before. I'm going to talk just a little bit because of what's going on at High Point. First of all, I sit on other boards, and all these numbers that I just read it's not only that they happen in an environment when most universities are actually failing or tanking or lowering. It's a very slow go for many universities. So, especially private universities. A couple things. So we go on campus at one university, an elite university. My daughter's, the experience we had in just the first few seconds on the tour, we'll never go back. Only because of the tour. You take the details of the tour a certain way. It's unbelievable if you've never had a tour of High Point. Number two, I walk on campus and the chaplain is picking up garbage. And I notice it. Why? I learned later, everybody picks up garbage. Everybody keeps it clean. Everybody loves the campus. It's beautiful. Number three, there's a big call up. Everybody is called up toward greatness, not down. Number four, as I think of it, talking about life skills, there are many ways I see it on campus, but an example. There's a couple of very nice restaurants on campus, nicer than most campuses have. You can use your normal meal plan there. However, you set your own reservation. And by the way, if you have your phone out where they see it, you're not welcome back for 3 months, I believe. So these kind of things, why parents like this, because they know they want to set their student up. They've been trying to teach this for a long time, but at some point, parents' influence doesn't always go up. They want others to affirm what they've said. So there's 10 other ways that life skills and premier skills are built. A load here in this very short time. One last word of wisdom before I ask you the final question. Anywhere you want, Dr. Qubein.
Yeah, well, that life is in a continuum. That what we did yesterday mattered yesterday, but it may not be enough for tomorrow. That all of us must continually be learning, growing, expanding our spectrum of understanding. That knowledge does not equal understanding. You can have a lot of degrees and not understand how to get along with people, how to make good things happen. That's what I mean by pragmatic, practical understanding. Of course, knowledge is important. We're not suggesting otherwise. If you're going to be a biologist, you better know biology. If you want to be a mathematician, you better know mathematics. All I'm suggesting to you is, if you're not careful, that becomes training in a discipline. And what we must do is educate people. Education comes from a Greek derivative, educo, which means to change from within, to transform so that you can meet your fullest potential. Now, you said something about someone picking up a piece of paper. The campus is always clean because nobody really drops a piece of paper, but any one of us will pick it up if we see it. Why is that? Because we teach basic laws. One of them is, if there's a problem here, like a piece of paper on the ground, this is not the responsibility of just the person who cuts the grass or the person who cleans the campus. This is all of our responsibility. If you're sitting in a committee in a business and you're trying to solve a problem, you don't divvy up the responsibility. If there are 10 people there, each of us will take 10%. No, each of us must take 100%. That's called community. That's called building true culture that says, this is my company, this is my organization, this is my university. Also remember this, parents want their kids to do better in life than they did themselves. So parents are looking out and saying, what are our students learning today? There is a difference between a sound bite and sound judgment. How do we teach that? So we're watching stuff on TV or reading, and we're really believing it. We start thinking that's the truth. And that's not the truth. We have to also enable people to learn judgment, how to have judgment, how to have a sense of awareness, how to become a relevant human being. So, David, these are big things. We work on them every day. We're not a perfect school, for heaven's sakes. We're not a perfect school because we got 6,000 kids here, come from 6,000 families. They're not perfect. But I'll tell you what, this is an extraordinary place. Our call to action is choose to be extraordinary. Don't be mediocre. Don't be satisfied with what you got now, And for heaven's sakes, welcome change. For the timid, change is frightening. For the comfortable, change is threatening. But for the confident, change is opportunity. So make your competence lead to your confidence and see what happens in life.
And there's why it is so innovative right there. Lots more. You'll see it in the show notes, trustedleadershow.com. That's where you'll find all the Dr. Nido Qubein website, High Point University website. Thank you for all you're doing for all those great students, including and especially my daughter. And thank you for being my friend. There's always one question we end with. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Dr. Qubein, who is a leader you trust and why?
Oh, there are many of them. One of the leaders that I loved and was a really great friend of mine was the late Colin Powell. I think Colin Powell is a man of integrity, and so much so that when they asked him about Iraq and later on, he said, I made a mistake. I I used the information I had at the time. It doesn't mean that I was lying or misleading. I just liked that man. He always kissed me on both cheeks when he saw me. And that was a sign of love. But there's a guy, I would recommend everyone to read his books and understand he came up in a very difficult time when America was not equitable. And in spite of it, David, rose to the very top, became a worldwide respected leader. So that's one. If I had to name one, that would be one. My mother, of course, would always be the first one ahead of any list you can be. David, before you hang up, let me just say this. You are one of a kind. And I hope people listening to this podcast or watching it understand this, that you have changed the world in your own way. You have taken the talents that God has given you, you've turned them into magnificent skills, and you've done it with your clients, but more importantly in my book, you've done it even with colleagues of yours, the National Speaker Association, where you're highly respected, where you have the highest awards, and certainly in every circle of influence you find yourself. You represent America and the world in a wonderful way, my friend, and that is a blessing of all blessings. And then I see you on Facebook where you and your wife are climbing places and going on crazy hikes, and I go, why? Why? Sit at home and eat some donuts. Love you, David. I'm glad to be with you.
Well, Dr. Qubein, thank you. And with that, this has been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.